It's interesting. I noted that all my fellow journalists were fond of this term serial killer when discussing her, but in the likes of John Wick's and Death Wish, you always hear the word vigilante.
I think that's true. I think it's very easy to sort of couch the character as just mad. I mean, she is quite mad. But as you watch the film, you realise there is a reason behind what she's doing, rightly or wrongly. There is a sort of reasoning to her madness. And I would say that it's sort of similar structurally to things like John Wick's and Taken and all the traditional, vengeance sort of thing. Mad Max and Gladiator are kind of vengeance flicks, I would say, and there's a little bit of that in this, yeah.
But because it's in a more kind of downbeat kind of world,
a more realistic kind of grimy sort of UK lens upon the whole thing. It possibly feels a bit more familiar or close to home to people when they're watching it, I guess.
I thought also quite beautiful at times. You create a lovely eerie lighting as we went through the landscapes towards the end.
Well, that's thanks to my amazing DOP. I mean, he's very good at sort of, we shot it over a very short time, so I was demanding quite a lot of him. I think it was very much a sort of choice of going, well, there'll be some scenes that are very handheld and rough around the edges, and then if we're lucky, we'll get some beauty into it as well, and we'll try to indulge in some sort of more cinematic shots and stuff, and luckily we did get that opportunity. And it was really interesting filming in Cardiff because I don't think people would necessarily assume that was the most cinematic of locations, but we did find some really amazing places, and I hope it kind of casts it in a sort of different light in a way. We've made it look very noirish, and which, I mean, it really appealed to me, the idea of filming in Cardiff, because I do think of it as a nighttime city with lots of lights and stuff, which was the sort of feeling that I wanted for the film.
It's also got a very dreamlike quality. I mean, some people seem to have found read it too literally. I found it very much of a dream movie. Even it reminded me of Vertigo, believe it or not.
Oh, well, no, I think that's really perceptive. I mean, I don't think there's psychological realism in the sense that if someone's spiralling into a sort of existential crisis, but in terms of like pregnant women murdering people, I don't think there's really that much precedent for that. It's, it is kind of a bit of a fantasy, wish fulfillment sort of film where you're descending into someone's mind, really. And, I really wanted to show that, I kind of wanted to reflect pregnancy and the kind of, what it does, what the hormones do to your mind, and that they do sort of shift your perceptions, and that was what I was trying to show in the film, really, that, it's someone who is in a bit of a walking nightmare, really, with the odd glimpses of sort of hope or melancholy or fury, and the cocktail of emotions that sort of comes about with pregnancy.
Yeah, fury being a key word there. I think it even alludes to furies literally as moments in the film.
Yeah, oh, totally. I mean, we had some. I researched the classical idea of the Furies as well, who were like the goddesses of vengeance. I just got interested in this idea of, sort of female element to rage, and what female anger would look like. And obviously those goddesses are quite convenient place for those sorts of ideas. And I think it was, there is a bit of anger in there. I kind of felt like I wanted to show a pregnant woman who, rightly or wrongly, is empowered in some ways. I kind of talk about her as being an anti-superheroine in some ways, but she's got pregnancy as a special power, and so she's kind of using these special powers to kind of get what she wants, really. And I think we're used to seeing pregnant women as represented as weak or vulnerable in some way, or a bit mad because of their, or irrational, or making irrational demands. And I kind of wanted to show the flip side of that, really.
It was a very interesting tightrope, the way you managed to evolve in empathy for such a character, and the quandary that goes on within her own head as she goes along was quite interesting, that she's trying to justify each killing. She needs to almost find a reason as she reaches each next victim. and they start
Yeah.
to kind of fall apart towards when she meets the jogging lady.
Yeah, well, I wanted it to be that there is a conflict within her between, there's part of her that thinks she's this righteous avenger that's knocking off sinners in a way. It's a bit like her own version of Seven, that she's, the baby's like, all humanity is rubbish, so we might as well get rid of them. But, in her own mind, she's got these quandaries, she's got these sort of sentiments that she feels responsible towards these people in some ways to be fair towards them. So it's almost like she takes them to trial with each killing,
Yes.
and sort of has to make the decision, they should die. And I hope the sort of audience go with her on that as well. I mean, there were some times where we had to actually make the decision of like, oh, we need to cut this bit out because this person takes this too far, and you're actually a bit like, yeah, kill him. There wasn't any dilemma almost. It was almost like, this person is too revolting.
But that's what I like about it. It just plays with expectations, and that's naturally going to really annoy some people, and it's going to please others. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think people will form their different opinions about the characters, and I want them to do that, to decide whether, oh, was that a bit unfair? Like, quite a lot of people say to me, did she have to kill Josh? I'm sort of like, well, she did, because that's kind of the turning point for her of, like, realising that she's gone beyond and there's no turning back, really.
Without giving it away, that was a wonderful scene. It was kind of, it wasn't unexpected, but it was still a wonderful moment. We won't go into it. But tell us a little bit about the production. I know that it was an amazing turnaround. You were heavily pregnant at the time. And obviously you were pregnant when you shot the film as well. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, someone came to me and said, do you want to make a film? And it was a kind of no strings attached, what would you like to do sort of thing. And it was a director I'd worked with before on another feature called Black Mountain Poets, but I'd just been an actress on that. And I sort of said no, and then I went away and thought, actually, what if I played a pregnant character? What would that look like? What story would I want to tell? And so I pitched them this idea of a pregnancy revenge movie, thinking they'd just say, that's ridiculous. There's a reason there's been no pregnant director stars of features. It's because it's impossible to do. And they didn't. They said, yes, let's do it. And I was like, okay, but we have to do it in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Before I have the baby. And they were like, yeah, I think that's possible. And we just went on from there. I had the right second guess anything. I just very much, it's very much a first draft that we shot in some ways. I think I did a few small changes, but I had to kind of use all my experience of low budget filmmaking to kind of write something that I knew was achievable within the time. So I knew it had to be long scenes in very few locations and maybe a very small cast. So it was kind of like a case of writing a series of vignettes, really, with a different actor in each one, so that we could get an actor in each day.
It's kind of, the ultimate act in improvisation, all encouraged by the offer of being pregnant.
Yeah, well, I'm sure people thought, what the hell am I getting myself into by turning up to do the project? But it was just one day, so it probably didn't seem like that much of a sacrifice. But, I really asked actors that I knew would bring more than the sum of their parts to the role, that I knew had comedy and acting ability, could do drama and comedy, and also would just make the characters very convincing and sort of mesmeric on screen. And we totally embroidered the scenes and added to them with improv as well, so I needed to work with people who wouldn't be fazed by that, who were kind of used to working in that way.
You were surrounded by a wonderful cast, there's no doubt about it. Forgive me for forgetting your top act, your first victim's name. Interesting connection that he's also in High Rise.
Skinner. Yeah, he's in Notes on Blindness as well,
He's a wonderful actor. I don't see enough of him. I love him in House of Fools.
Yeah, I think he's going to get more work now. I mean, he's just done, in serious stuff, because he's just done Notes on Blindness, which apparently is incredible, and he's the lead in that, and that's had a lot of accolades. So I kind of think you're going to see him more, really. He is amazing. He's so convincing in whatever role he plays.
And as you were saying, it means an awful lot to be surrounded by such strong collaborators. Would you like to tell me a little bit more about that? What it really meant to the shoot itself? As you say, it was 11 days. That's kind of phenomenal.
Yeah. So we shot the whole thing. We did a 5-day shoot, then we had a couple of days off, and then we did another 3-day shoot, and then we had a couple of weeks off. Meantime, while I was getting bigger, and then we kind of did 3 days pickup. So yeah, it was very, very quick, and it was very like the actors just came in. They knew what their scene was, but they didn't necessarily know much about the project, hadn't had much background on it, and they just took a leap of faith by sort of participating. And then, you know, really until the screenings, I don't think they really knew what to expect from the film. And then by the time, you know, we were finishing the film, racing to get to Toronto because they accepted the film on the ground of seeing it without a grade, without final sound.
Well, she sounds in fine fettle.
Yes, she's getting previously has eaten.
Okay, we'll keep going too long. I was interestingly, I don't know. Do you know a story by Cornell Woolrich called "The Bride Wore Black"?
I've heard of it actually because I think the reason I know about it is Kate Bush did a song based on it.
Well, that's
I'm
right.
a massive Kate Bush fan.
well, go and check out. Jean Truffaut did an adaptation of it, and I had I'm trying to up my kind of snooty cinema at the moment, and I saw it only a few weeks before your film, and I couldn't get over it. And I mean this in a nice way. Some wonderful similarities in the premise and the beginning of those two movies. I think you'll enjoy to watch it.
Check it out because in Venice they asked me about it and I was hugely embarrassed that I hadn't seen it. It was embarrassing. It was like the first question that they asked me at this incredibly, you know,
European
brow festival, and I was like, oh dear, oh dear. But no, I would love to see it. And there's this song that I love by Kate Bush, which is called "The Wedding List," and I think that's based on that story.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song, and I saw somewhere that you were going to use a Kate Bush song in the closing credits, but what was that one called?
I'm always trying to use Kate Bush songs, and it's just, you know,
who wouldn't?
Live in hope one day that it will work out. But yeah, we wanted to use it at the end, but it didn't work out. But you know, I just find her an inspiration really in all of my work, just like the stories that she tells, often very female perspective, and yeah, just the emotion that she brings to things. And I think that was really what helped me by listening to that song, was I really wanted there to be some pathos and some sadness within the film. And I think that is something that I'm quite proud of in terms of like the comedy horror genre, that I actually managed to squeeze in some sort of pathos and pathos more than pathos, but you know, some sort of melancholy into it as well, which I think is not particularly traditional, but you know, I think as a female director, maybe that's one of the things that I was interested in bringing to the screen, really.
Yeah, well, you certainly took on a hell of a lot of work. Tell me this. I'd love to see way backwards and talk a little bit about your career up to this point. I'm also a big fan of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and that was one of your earlier roles, and you've done Mighty Boosh, and you know, you come from a very solid improv and kind of surrealist theatre background. Yeah, so I mean, it's not hard to see you kind of getting into the, and again, Sightseers is another wonderful film that you did. You could almost say, in another universe, this is a sequel to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, people have asked me about that, and I don't mind people sort of saying that. I kind of think, for me personally, sequels always feel like a bit reductive.
Yeah.
Maybe even, just for me personally, in terms of moving forwards creatively, but if people see similarities, I have no problem with that at all. I'm like, well, all of my work is following on from itself. You know, I'm sort of just developing and learning all the time and evolving into a sort of, I hope, a better filmmaker. So,
well, I think the
similarities is linked, of course.
The similarities are they're both very dark and absurd in that lovely way. But which brings me to, you obviously working with Ben Wheatley was interesting in itself, and he had to learn your dynamic as much as you kind of went with his, let's go like 90 dynamic. Did that have an effect on the way you approached Prevenge by any chance?
inspiring, actually. And I think I learned a few tricks from him in terms of like just pushing forward with the work and not second guessing or not allowing doubts to creep into your mind. And I mean, in terms of like the way he works very fast and stuff, that's my preferred way of working as well. I've made lots of short films which I've shot in one day and stuff, and for me it's more about making sure that idea gets out there and the spark that interested you in the first place. And sometimes there's no amount of finessing and sort of adapting that really helps that. It's like you can actually kill the spark that first inspired you. So for me it's always like I'd rather be working really quickly and getting, I think, the results are it's sort of rough around the edges, but there's a real energy on screen and there's real tension, and the actors are coming on set going, I have no idea what's going on, we're just throwing ourselves into this. And to me that's how you get, what else am I offering? I'm trying to compete in a way with like multi-million-dollar blockbusters that people might choose to see instead of this film, and I'm sort of like, well, I can't give you explosions and I can't give you loads of CGI and multi-million-dollar effects, but what I can do is put like energy and vibrancy onto the screen and a kind of sense of rawness that you don't get to see all the time. And I think that's the joy of sort of low-budget filmmaking, really.
Yeah, there's that the Hollywood hangover in a lot of people's heads about being prepared, and sometimes you should be just prepared to find out what's going to happen on the day. Not meaning that you don't do any work, but as you say,
that's exactly the way it is. I mean, I kind of think the script is the plan B to me, and it's like if you find something better, you shoot that, and it's just that open-mindedness to the flexibility. It's very sort of 70s way of filmmaking, really, but a lot of the stuff that I'm proudest of in the film is stuff that wasn't planned. It's, things visually that popped up and I was like, oh my God, can we get that? And just structuring that into your schedule of kind of going, we'll get some stuff here, we don't know what it is, but we trust that it will be cool. And there was definitely that in the schedule was sort of built in. Like for example, the Halloween walk, we just knew that that's what we call it, it's Halloween walk, but walking through the streets of Cardiff, not really knowing what we were going to get, and just trusting that we were going to get something amazing. And that's some of my favourite stuff, because you kind of feel more like you're channeling something else. It's nothing. The fact that it's good is nothing to do with you. It's just that you've managed to capture something that was really happening. That is exciting.
And you would have kicked yourself if you hadn't.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is, we couldn't have afforded it. We couldn't have afforded to create that scene without just using general public. It's the amount of extras and costumes and stuff. We just didn't have the time or the money. So the fact that we just sort of chased people around and asked them to sign things was the only way we could pull it off, really.
I don't think they would have remembered.
No, possibly not.
Not looking like the state of some of them. But to go back again, tell me more about your early days of improv with what was it? Heat City? Forgive me for not remembering. Your original improv work. Can you tell me more about that and how it kind of led you into television and going for this darker kind of material that you do seem to thrive in?
I mean, I've never really done any sort of formal. I've never been part of a improvisation troupe or anything like that, so I don't have any formal experience of that. I think it's more that I worked quite a lot in devised theatre right at the beginning of my career, and I was working with people like Paul King, who now directing Paddington and Paddington 2, and I think we were really interested in groups like Theatre de Complicité and Robert Lepage, who did very sort of visual theatre pieces, and I'd be building characters for these shows that we were doing, and after a while sort of realised, what we're doing is improvisation, but it's actually a form of writing as well, and trusting improvisation as a writing tool, really. So I would say what I do is very character comedy. It's not like improvisation sport, which is like a quite American thing, where it's like whose line is it anyway. I don't really go for. I'm not really any good at that. But what I do like to do is build characters with other actors by working through scenes, and I think you get to truth in that way. I think you sort of pass a point where you're not trying to show off. You're just actually channeling, like you get to a more relaxed state where you're I don't know, like you're having more normal conversations, but that are very revelatory about the characters, and I just find sometimes film scripts is very artificial and nothing to do with the characters or with real life. And I'm sort of more interested in sort of drawing out what sort of psychological truths in stuff. So, yeah, for me, I just enjoy it as well. It's just, you come up with, when I'm working in comedy and it's very, very scripted, you sometimes think, oh, you add in a joke and that's where the laugh is. And, for me, I'm like, why would I turn down that gold dust, from my performers if someone added in something that was hilarious and everyone was falling around? I'm like, now I've got more than my money's worth, this is brilliant. Whereas, some people prefer to keep it very, very tightly scripted and the jokes are the jokes and there's nothing to be added. Or, sometimes I think you don't know what's funny until you're in the situation, basically, and you're in the costume and you're in the room and you're,
Yeah.
That's when it's suddenly there's this huge clarity about what's going on in this scene. And
Yes.
and I think it's a shame to not use that.
I agree what you said there as well, that it's losing your ego. A lot of actors take a long time to learn that. Some never learn it. And from doing a little bit of improv myself, I know I do have an idea what you're talking about. Is that strange moment where the group are just doing something and you don't have to know everything that's just happened, but you know when it works.
It is that thing of sort of just trying to channel the moment and listen to each other as well. I think that's a really important thing. Joe Hartley was saying that's what Shane Meadows always says. He's like, you just listen to each other and respond. You're not trying to show off by carving something out. You're actually just reacting. That's the most important thing, is to react in a genuine way. And that's what my actors gave to me, not just as a director, but as a performer. They came in and surprised me with what they were doing, whether it was the way they were delivering the lines in the script or by adding in a curveball that I wasn't expecting. That helped me as well to not be sort of going, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing in this scene. Because I wrote it.
Well, that's what collaboration's about, isn't it? It's about the other person and creating the thing, not creating your own performance alone.
Yeah, exactly. You're serving what the scene is and the meaning, and that's why I kind of like people to not know too much about what they're doing. Like Woody Allen says that as well. Like, actors sometimes will really want to talk for a long time about their characters and their scenes, and I really try and resist that because it's sort of like, I want you to let go. I don't want you to feel like you're in control, because people in real life are not in control. We don't know what the script is in real life, so feeling nervous or sort of a little bit vulnerable, I think, is really interesting to watch, and always makes a performance seem more interesting to me, anyway.
It does a kind of energy that it can't be faked. No matter what the skills are and the diction and the placing and the mooding, as it were. But I suppose the sense of what actors are these days seems to be evolving all the time, depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're reaching this point now where, we've gone past the point of the star, haven't we? It's like, who's the new Tom Cruise? There just isn't, because studios don't let actors have that power anymore. And also, we're all going to be CGI generated within about 10 years anyway. Just download our facial expressions.
I can't wait for all those new Laurel and Hardy movies.
Yeah, exactly. But, I'm kind of like, that's why I'm kind of interested in people who are these charismatic performers that are quite peculiar, actually, and unusual. I don't really like casting people that are unexpected and that you feel like there's an intangible charisma to this person. I don't really know what it is, but it's always watchable. And I sometimes say that to young filmmakers as well, like, don't sort of go, oh, this has to be a 6-foot-tall redhead because I put it in the script. It's like, get the actor that you know that is really charismatic and funny and entertaining, and you just would watch them like just sitting looking out the window is watchable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the magic of how to make a good scene and a good film, I think, is just like make sure the actors are fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
when you're half the way there.
Yeah, I say sometimes the skill is actually having the nerve to find out what something is, not and try and make it what it is. And just find the elements along the way and be surprised and know when something is really kind of jumps out at you.
Well, this is what I really enjoyed about this film, is I had these very long scenes that were between strangers. So it was a kind of sense of like, they're quite slow paced, but then the audience knows what's coming. But it's a sense of being able have this luxury to build up this weird, awkward tension. There's nothing expected about it, you know, like that. I wasn't sort of using other scenes from films to kind of build what I was doing. I was kind of going, what would it really be like if this was really happening? A lot of that was really interesting because you kind of underestimate people's attention span sometimes. And
Yeah.
oh, who's going to find this interesting? But actually, as long as it feels fresh and real, people do want to watch it. They're sort of like, what's going on here? They sort of sit up and take notice because they're like, what the hell is happening? Like, so I think all of that has been quite useful.
How much did you, when you were in, I mean, how did you find the process of, I mean, you're practically in every scene. So directing yourself, you weren't running quickly behind the camera and then quickly in front of the camera to do this, obviously, and you had people that you trusted that were marking it. But what was it like for you to be doing all this? And as we know, pregnant on top of all that as well.
I kind of forgot that I was pregnant. Like sometimes people would be offering me a seat, and I'd be like, "No, I'm fine. Why did you put this seat on me?" And then I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm pregnant." Yeah. I had loads of energy. It was fun. I mean, it's always tiring doing a long shoot, but I didn't feel any more tired than anyone else. I think I was just quite happy to be making film. And to me, like I've done a lot of low budget things where you're wearing lots of different hats, where you're maybe, you know, you have done your own costumes or built a prop, or you know, you're doing lots of different things. So to me, like, directing and acting in something doesn't feel that demanding. It feels kind of okay. I've had so much experience on set, and I feel like, yeah, I know how this works. I know the workplace. I know the hierarchies of all the different jobs, and I understand it. I feel very comfortable on set. So I'm not there going, oh shit, how am I going to pull this off? I'm just there going, this is normal. This is back to work, you know. And really, I don't really watch rushes and stuff. I just kind of trust my DOP, and I trust what the atmosphere in the room is. If I feel like there was an amazing vibe for a particular take or whatever, and the DOP is like, yes, technically I grabbed everything, I'm like, thumbs up, let's move on then. You know, I don't sort of dwell around going, I think we should shoot this in 20 different angles. I'm sort of a bit like, I'd rather do another take than watch the rushes, because watching a playback takes the same amount as filming it again in a different way. So why don't we just film it again? You know, that's why I'd rather just
another one of the
material, just like gather material, and then in the edit is where you do all the really hard work and the hard graft and making all your choices and stuff.
But it's a big deal to trust your DOP so much that, again, I think all the good DOPs should do at least one acting course and have a good sense of story. I mean, you must have felt that in some way from the DOP.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have my very particular, you know, I don't believe in getting too much coverage. I kind of go, we'll start in this way, and then we might need these shots, but we might not. And if I feel like we've got enough coverage, then I'll stop. So I'm kind of quite confident in saying to the DOP, I'm happy with that angle to cover this whole scene, you know, and that's, so you're approaching it with an economy anyway. And then when you know, I mean, I knew Ryan was, he's very sensitive to performance. I sort of trust him when he's going to swing the camera around, because they maybe haven't even said something, they've just got an expression on their face that the audience need to see, and I trust him to sort of respond in that emotionally intelligent, sort of literate way. But he also knows how to make something look beautiful on very short notice. So, you know, right from the start I'd said to him, we're not going to do any lighting, it's all going to be practical lighting. It's like, you know, you can have one light, and that's just to make sure people aren't in shadow, but basically I want all the lighting to be hidden so we can roam around and film 360 without stopping and starting, because lighting's often the thing that takes up a lot of your time when you're setting. So I just didn't want any of that. We were just going to get rid of that. That's how Ben Wheatley works as well.
Yeah, I remember I was at a talk he gave, and it was one of the most interesting things he said about Down Terrace. Was the first thing he said, the cameraman, was, don't you be upsetting me with the lights.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I do think it's that thing of like, I mean, I really like 70s filmmakers as well, and I'm kind of like, if I want it to be blue, I want there to be a blue lamp in the room. I want it to all be practical, you know. Any choices that I make, I want people to feel like this looks like this, not because someone pressed a button in the grading suite, but because it's really like this. And I think that's another thing about sort of embracing realism and stuff. And a lot of the locations we chose for the quality of the light and and what it brought in terms of colour already. So I was sort of like saying, this murder is orange, I want this flat to be orange. And then we'd find an orange flat. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that.
Yeah, I thought
really, really lucky.
I thought the most beautifully most beautiful kind of murder in terms of from a cinematography point of view was the insurance lady in the office. I liked all the way you kind of went to a very alien landscape for that. You might as well have been in a spaceship. We really, that was sort of another really lucky thing where I was like, I want this murder to be blue, like icy blue, and I wanted to film it from up underneath of a glass table, and then the glass table that in this place where they let us film for free was icy blue, and I was like, oh my god, this could not be perfect. So a lot of that was just coincidence, and good luck, but it does show you what you can pull off if you're willing to think laterally about things. Yeah.
And it's the joy of it. I actually really, really enjoy working in that way. It's like, oh my god, we found this thing, and you do feel this, like I said to the DOP who's based in Cardiff, I want to film in an underpass, and I want it to be really bright colours, like the more Kubricky it could be, the better. And he was like, I know just the place, and he showed me this underpass, and I was like, oh my god, this is what I had in my head. I can't believe it. It's like uncanny almost. So there's a lot of like very fortuitous coincidences like that.
In some ways, there's truth. I don't think there's such thing as a bad location. It's just badly looked at and badly thought about is what happens with locations.
Yeah, or underestimated. You kind of want that thing. Like someone really, the most flattered I was about the sort of cinematography, or I thought it was a testament to Ryan's work, was a guy from Cardiff who was interviewing me says, I'd never seen Cardiff shown in that light before. It made me think differently about the city. And I was like, well, that's what you're trying to do, isn't it? It's like, yeah, as you say, it's an alien landscape, trying to see it as with completely fresh eyes and not kind of going, oh, it's just Cardiff, it's never been shown in a film before, who cares? It's going, no, this is cinematic. And I met Mike Hodges as well, and I remember him talking about Carter and his reasons for filming it on the docks, and he was like, oh, the accents are all completely wrong, it doesn't make sense that it's happening there, but I knew visually it was going to make it into this completely new, exciting thing that hadn't really been done before, and I think that's really true.
That's one of the best northern landscape movies of the 70s.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, I don't want to keep you on too long. I don't want to be into your time. Thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate it. I think
I'm glad.
Our listeners are going to love it. Yeah. Sorry we can't talk about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place anymore. What is Garth up to these days anyway? Alice, good luck with the movie and good luck with the next movie as well. I look forward to that. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, well, see ya.
Yeah, all the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.